You. Welcome to another episode of Shine Like a North Star. I'm Carrie Burchill, and I intentionally work through these sessions with you to provide just in time information so that you can shine like a North Star. So think of the North Star, right? It's not the brightest light consistently, just like as humans, we're not our brightest every day. And so I really want to use this time to help you slow down, to think through how you can shine a little more or what might be getting in the way of you shining your brightest. So today's work comes from a recent keynote that I did with a medical group management association. And the kind of give you the context of the keynote, it's about not falling into the ask hole trap, ASK. That's important. ASK hole trap. And really that tendency that leaders have to sort of jump in, and whenever somebody asks them to do something, they do it. And this pattern where employees are more and more often, it seems, putting things on the leader's desk, asking the leader to do things that the employee could do, and for a bunch of different reasons, they're asking the leader to do it. So leading out of the ask hole trap means helping your employees slow down and see what they can own, so that as a leader, you're not just sort of getting caught in that trap of doing their work and your work. End result is you get more time back to do leadership stuff. So that's the crux of the keynote. And at the end of it, a leader came up to me on the stage and said, I used to be good at those skills, slowing leaders down or slowing employees down, helping them think through what they can own, really engaging them to do their best and to own what they can own. And so I said, oh, that's interesting. What's that shift about? Well, he says, when I think about it, it was about 5 years ago. I'm like, huh. Maybe you're thinking the same thing as me, right? COVID, pre-COVID, post-COVID. So it was this really interesting dialogue with the leader around how his leadership patterns have shifted. He still has the skill to lead people out of the ask hole trap. He was busy doing a bunch of other things because during COVID, it was all hands on deck, right? Roles were messy, communication was poor or absent. I think of, incident commands popping up in different organizations in different ways. It was really about surviving, like reptilian brain sort of stuff. It was less about the nuances of leadership and some of the work that we're challenged to do now as we support our teams navigating the byproduct of COVID, the echo pandemic. So that caused me to pause to really spend some time with you thinking through, how have you shifted because of COVID? Experience changes all of us. So more specific to just how have you shifted, how has your leadership shifted as a result of COVID? So when you think of this leader's just great awareness, having this kind of light bulb go off, thinking, I used to rock at these skills that Carrie's talking about on stage. What happened? How did I get off of doing that? And blah, blah, blah. And he even shared with me, I remember implementing the skills and just feeling that they were so awkward and sort of scripted and not a natural way to sort of slow people down and actively listen, right? And we joked about how the skills, when you first use them, do. And he goes, I saw the benefits. So here's a leader who bought in, COVID happened, and is now kind of going, wow, those skills worked. This is a good reminder for me to get back to what I wanted. So if you think of how COVID has shifted you and your leadership specifically, because today's live is about a space for reflection, to think through your influence. You're having a different influence now than you did before COVID, because the world isn't the same, so your influence isn't the same. My hunch is that you're approaching your influence a little differently than you did before. And that may be some things changing at home that causes you to influence differently in your leadership. It may be your awareness of the people and groups you serve in your leadership needing different things. And so as a result, you're showing up differently. So how has COVID shifted your leadership? And then right behind that, I really want to seed this idea of leadership that I'm seeing more and more this kind of compartmentalization of managing, right? Which is the tasky transactional. We need some management in our leaders, right? Someone's got to approve payroll and, follow policies, that kind of stuff. Then there's the leadership work, which is the more nuanced strategic thinking, succession planning. How do we grow people to really be their best? And the gap that I'm seeing in the different industries I serve, so I'm with police and manufacturing and HR and healthcare, all over. It doesn't matter what the industry is. This teaching part is something where we have not found the time to really honor it as much as we need to. So that teaching piece in particular came up in a conversation with leaders just today, talking about the challenge of hiring people. So they've had jobs posted for a long time, no one's hiring, big discussion around recruitment, what employees' expectations are. That's not the point of today, although we could talk about it for a long time. More about how we're in a pickle being short-staffed. And so we end up hiring people that maybe don't have the breadth of experience or the training that we need. And it leaves the teaching up to the department or the leader to teach the employee some skills that need to happen. In particular, the leadership group I was working with this morning spent some time talking about critical thinking and how critical thinking is just really not something that we see promoted a ton in schools. I mean, they even referenced 15, 20 years ago not seeing that, right? So this is sort of a product of some things in schooling that have changed for a bunch of reasons, not making this about education, even though I have an education background and believe me, I have some thoughts. But more about how our role as leaders is shifting more to leading and teaching people what they need to do to thrive. Very different role. Like, I think in many cases before, leaders fostered development by attending conferences or maybe mentoring, and less of like recognizing I might have a new employee that comes in here. I was hoping that I would hire someone with this skill, and oh, look at that big gap, right? And how is that person going to learn the gap? It's certainly no surprise in leadership that we hire and promote people without giving them the training. We sort of think that your experience catches you up, right? So leaders that are promoted often struggle with that first role, especially in leadership, because no one's to kind of help them learn the ropes of leadership. So this isn't a new phenomenon. I am seeing the need to teach employees at a more concentrated, highlighted space than what it has been before COVID. Yeah. So let me put that little nugget in your bonnet to think through how you're managing, how you're leading, and more importantly, how you are teaching. So you can check me out and other YouTubes, carriebirchall.com. I love working with leaders. Feel free to reach out just to talk leadership. I always find that I learn as much from conversations and my clients as they do from me. So this is like a shared space of leadership, shining like a North Star, figuring it out. Nobody has the answers. We still have not found our rhythm in whatever the new normal kind of looks like. So let's talk it out. Make sense of it together. We will see you next week on Shine Like a North Star. Bye.